All right. Thanks again for joining. Just to be mindful of everyone's time, we'll go ahead and get started with the introduction. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Geographic Society of Chicago's December travelogue. I'm Nicolette Marassa from the GSC office, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Just a reminder, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please post them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll do our best to get to them, time permitting. If this is your first time attending a GSC event, welcome, and thank you for tuning in. The Geographic Society of Chicago has educated the public about geography and its important uses since 1898. Through services such as our geospatial technology programs, we offer unique educational experiences that harness the power of maps and the integrative tools of GIS. Today's travelogue presenter is Dorothy Dare, member of the Society of Women Geographers. Dorothy, thank you for being with us today and presenting on Christmas traditions of Spain.
Thank you, Nicolette, and thank you for all your help in getting me set up. And thank you to the Geographic Society of Chicago. I have enjoyed these webinars in the past, and I've also enjoyed being at the Cultural Center to do my presentations. This one should go about 45 minutes, so there will be time at the end for questions and comments. And I should tell you a few things that you're not seeing today. If you've seen my presentations before, you know I generally give some history, and I talk about who invaded what area of the country and what the religious composition is, the ethnicity, and the population. You're not going to see any of that. This is a party. We're going to Spain for Christmas, and we're going to celebrate. And furthermore, the slides aren't in any particular order. It's not in the order of the itinerary that we had. It's just according to what comes up about that subject. So I'm going to share my screen with you now, and I hope you enjoy it.
Dorothy, your screen is shared and we can see your presentation. So go ahead and select the,
okay, there you go.
There you are. Perfect.
This was a trip in 2021, and it was a combined trip of Portugal and Spain called Posadas and Paradors. It was held by Overseas Adventure Travel. Overseas Adventure Travel usually takes small groups. We were maybe a dozen of people in Portugal, and then part of Spain was on that main trip, and part of it was on a post trip. And the post trip went over Christmas, and Overseas Adventure Travel was a little skeptical about having us go at Christmas because only 2 of us showed up for the extension. And they called and they said, well, it's Christmas, nothing will be open, and there's only 2 of you. Do you really want to go? Yes, we really want to go. Then they called again. It's Christmas, there's only 2 of you. Yes, we really want to go. Well, there may not be anything to eat. And finally, the tour guide called me and she said, well, I found a place where you could get some food, but I thought I'd better check with you. The hotel in Santander says they could give you a cold meal in your room for 80 euros. And I wanted to make sure that was something you would like to do. And we said, no, thank you. And it turned out that they had called her and said, there's only 2 of them. Do you want to go? And she said, well, if I could bring my mother. So she brought her mother along, and there were 4 of us on the extension. A little bit about paradors and posadas. Paradors exist in Spain, and posadas are in Portugal. These are buildings in what the state would not know what to do with, like old monasteries, convents, castles, and some of them were even hotels. So they decided to make the most of it and make them into places where tourists would like to come. For example, I've stayed in a convent that had a Greek temple right out the door. I've stayed in a castle in Ondarabia. We arrived at the castle. It was the castle of King Charles V. And we could see it, we could drive around it, but we couldn't figure out how to get in. So we finally got on the phone and we said, well, we're here. How do we get in? And they said, well, drive up the street. And then on your right, there's a one-way street. Go down that the wrong way. And when you get to the gate, we'll let you in. So these are very exceptional places, and they do have a style of their own. So here's where we went. The Portugal, I'm not going to talk about Portugal at all, but we were in Merida, in Madrid, and then along the coast of the Sea of Biscay. So all along here. And these are all the places we visited. Many of them were just little towns. You may have heard of Bilbao, Madrid, Toledo, San Sebastian, but some of them you've never heard of. So here we are in Madrid. It's a few days before Christmas. We're just in there on a day trip, and they're celebrating with a Santa Claus 5K run. So here are all these people dressed in their Santa suits, and the children dressed like elves. And there they all are. We didn't know what they were doing. So I finally, when I came home, I said, well, I better find out what this is. This is what I found on the internet. This is how it fills up. There were 6,000 of them that year. And each year they have this run for charity. And they were different charities each time. So it was over by the time we got there, and here they are all around the town. And they've been there quite a while, so they have provisions, and they're on their way home. Some people got into the mood with their headgear. This is a symbol of Madrid, my favorite traffic light. Some of the fancy stores. Kids at their phones, just like here. And then we were treated to a tradition of flamenco. We went to see Lola. I want you to notice, this is where you can get out your dancing shoes and stomp your feet. Did you like the cape action? It reminded me of the Matadors. And she has a partner. Then this is not in Madrid, but it's in Sevilla. And these are just some young women out on the street practicing their flamenco. So it's a pretty big tradition. Another tradition is to sleep in a parador. This is the one in Carmona. We are up here, and this is the whole town. We could walk through the whole town. We walked down the hill, and that's how we got there. This is halfway down, looking back up, and that's the parador up on the hill. I think this one had been some kind of special palace, and it's on the tourist route. This is the front entrance. And these symbols are pretty common. When you have a key to a parador, it looks like this. And this little symbol is seen everywhere. And most of them, and many of the houses in Spain have an atrium. It serves to keep them cool in the summer and keep out the bandits in the old days. And it's just a beautiful place to congregate. This is the parador in Ronda. I think this one had been a hotel because its location is central. This is the main entrance, which has been restored, remodeled, updated. And this is the view from the parador. This is the ravine. On one of my trips, I walked the bottom of the ravine. It's quite a trip. That's the other side, looking out over the landscape. And here's the postman delivering the mail. Now, when you're in a foreign country, the hardest thing to find is the mailbox. Well, the second hardest thing is the mailbox. The post office is even harder to find. But in this case, not only do we get this beautiful depository for our mail, but we get to tell you where it's going. There's a bull ring in Ronda. It's one of the oldest in the country. And we went to a concert in a beautiful mansion. This is a view from the mansion overlooking the hillside. Lots of beautiful tile work. And when we went out of our parador in Rhonda, this was the main street. We just walked around the whole town. We didn't have to look for any kind of transportation. This is one of my favorite shots. A different street, different lighting. The lighting by the bull ring. Now we go to another parador in Ubita. And Ubita is famous for its pottery. There's the key, the grand entrance. I think this one was somebody's estate because it has an entire plaza in front of it. And of course, the courtyard, decorated with tile. And every city has different decorations. This is a typical pot or plate that is made in this area, and you'll see it all over Spain. I purchased this for a friend, and it has the traditional pomegranate in it and the colors of traditional blue and green. And in the center of the square, they had a pottery exhibit showing all the dishes. So we visited the potter who made most of the stuff you see around Spain. This is him. And this is a unique piece. I'm not sure how you're supposed to feel comfortable giving birth with this, but that's apparently what it's for. So he showed us all his beautiful pottery. He's very proud. More decorations. Of course, in Spain, it's evening and they've had a siesta, so the stores are open. Everybody's out in the evening. Now we go to Sevilla. The beautiful cathedral, Columbus's tomb, stained glass, beautiful gate, people on the street. Now this is December. He's in his shirt sleeves. And the thing about Sevilla, it's very gracious. We walked to all these different places, the Plaza de España, the gardens, and the tobacco factory, which the opera claimed neighborhood. So you could just walk around anywhere. And the horses and carriages are lilies here in the middle. And this is the Plaza de España. It's the centerpiece of Sevilla. It's in a crescent shape, as you can see. And it isn't very crowded. In the summertime, this is wall-to-wall little boats. It's very different in the wintertime. And then in each of the niches, there's a tribute to some place in Spain. This is for Madrid, for Cordoba. This is not a special place, but this is for Don Quixote. And you notice the beautiful tile work. Okay, now some people don't like bullfighting. It's a tradition. This is the bull ring in Sevilla. It's still active. I went to a bullfight in Granada, but in some cities like Barcelona, they've discontinued bullfighting entirely. So these are some pictures of things about bullfighting because it is a main tradition. This is along the highway. It looks like a bull. You're driving along and you see this giant statue. Well, at one time, it had been an advertisement for some kind of alcoholic beverage, and the state said, no, you can't be advertising alcoholic beverages on the highway. So they were going to take it down, but everybody liked it so much, they just took off the writing and left the bull. This is in a roadside hangout. This is a bullfighting museum in Cordoba. This is not Spain, but it's interesting because the bull has always been something that people wanted to conquer. And this is the Minoan group of women who, they don't kill the bull. They have a young man leap over the bull. This is a mosaic, or a mural rather, in Canosis. This was in the museum in Toledo, tiles about the bull, and then these lovely dishes. And this is probably the picador, of course. And we went to the place where they raise prize bulls out in the farm. This was the place called Cobatia. Here we are on the porch. And we looked at the trophies that inside. And they had a costume display. And these dresses sale in most of the cities. And believe it or not, people wear these. When I went to the bullfight in Granada, this is what the ladies were wearing. This is the family at the bull farm. There we are at the bull ring. I'm this one here in the middle with the camera. And we got into four-wheel drive vehicles and went out and looked at the animals. I don't know how they know which ones to pick. Merida is a World Heritage Site with Roman ruins. It's a modern bridge, not so modern walls. And this is the Roman area, the traditional amphitheater, statuary. This temple is in pretty reconstructed.
Dorothy,
this lady came out to look at us. She was
you,
curious. I
we
just
would
saw
like
she.
if you could go a little bit slower. There's a little bit of lag happening on our end. So if you could present just a little bit slower
Okay.
with the presentation, that would be best. Thank you so much.
Are you getting the message that it's unstable?
No, I'm
I
not
get a
getting
message.
that message, but if you could go a little
Well,
slower, that'd be great. So far, this is fantastic.
okay.
Thank you.
All right. Another tradition is the olive oil. This is the man who we went to an olive plantation, and this man was the owner, and he is so proud this day because he had just won an award which is equivalent to winning an Oscar. He was voted as having the best olive oil in all of Spain, and he just happened to find out that day. So you can see he's very, very happy. He has a great expanse of land. These are all olive trees. And if you ever go anywhere with overseas adventure travel, they will put you to work. I picked coffee beans in Colombia, and here we're going to harvest olives. So this is one of our travelers, and she's going to knock the olives off of the tree into this net. And then they fill the net, or they distribute olives in it. I don't know if we ever filled it. And of course, the ripe olives are the ones that drop off. So we harvested some olives. And then this is how they're processed. It's very modern machinery. And we had a beautiful lunch in the area where they actually do the processing. And this is the olive oil that won the prize. And I don't know if I've seen much Spanish olive oil in this country. I think they probably just eat it all themselves. Now, on the table in a restaurant or at breakfast, you'll have a little, about a 2-ounce jar of olive oil. And here you get a pat of butter, you get a jar of olive oil. So here he is thanking us for coming to see him win the prize. And then when the trees grow too old to bear olives, they take the wood and make trays and bowls and other articles from the wood itself. So these trees are being carted off to be recycled. Okay, I'm going to try to go slowly here. We're going through the countryside. Oviedo. This was a town we left from and where we had to be tested for COVID before we left. Actually, it's a city. This is a map of the city of Oviedo, the cathedral. This is a view from my hotel room. And again, we're out in the evening and everybody's out because it's a festival. Some of the locals. And when you see people with dogs, you know they're not tourists. These are some of the local people. Kids playing soccer. Notice they're all wearing masks, except this one. We went up on a very high hill to see an old church, which I'm not showing you, but these are some of the people that like to ride up there on their bikes. The Congressional Center, designed by Calatrava, and this is how it looked from above. Now, Calatrava was a bridge builder, but he also did many interesting buildings. And he's Spanish. Some people have walked this pilgrimage, the Santiago de Compostela. I have a friend who did this. And these are the different routes you can take. This is the destination of Santiago de Compostela. And you can start back here and you can take the southern route here, or the northern route. And where we traveled was just this little area in here. Now, I have a friend who did this. She walked, and I don't know whether she went north or south, but she walked probably close to 2 weeks to reach this pilgrimage destination. And people come from all over the world to do it. So it's really amazing. And I think there's a parador at the end, but I have never been that far. But as we went through these little towns, we'd find signs, because if you're walking, perhaps you won't know the way when you leave the town. So they have markers in various places to guide you. This is one on the street. This one has obviously been there for quite a long time. Okay, another little, it's not even a town. It's a destination. I think this is lit up at night. We were there in the daytime, but this is a pilgrimage site. And that's the main reason people come here. There is a little town connected with it, but mainly they've come to see this church and to have a pilgrimage. This is the only day it rained. Now we're up in the northwest area of Spain. It's quite rural. And as you can see, these sheep aren't accustomed to tourists. The cows don't care much. I thought this was interesting. This house is built above the ground and it's very efficient. You can store your wood underneath. The vermin can't get to you very easily, and it's warmer up there. And this is a typical style of houses in Asturias. Now we're in a town called Castro Uridales. It's a seaport. The harbor. fishing boats, a castle, and a cathedral, and a seashore. What more could you ask for? Now, this was apparently a hermit, and all these birds, I guess they're pigeons, were gathered around, and we said, well, what is going on here? It's just doesn't look right. And we couldn't see anybody. And finally, we see him in the window, and we wondered what it was all about. And he finally came out. I don't know whether he was curious to see the pigeons or to see us, but he never talked to us, so we never found out. What they sell at the tourist shops, obviously, they're proud of having a seaport. Coffee outside, walk along the dock, mend the nets, very important. Now we're traveling again. Bicyclists. And this is a very small town and water all around it. Old bridge. Not many people around. I love this picture because Santa Claus is knocking at the door. Presents under the trees. Open air creche scene. And finally, we're in Santander. It is a prosperous city on the sea. This is a view from our hotel. This is the one where they wanted to give us the 80 € cold meal, which we declined. But never miss a chance to have Santa Claus here at your hotel, even if he has to come down a road. There's
Dorothy,
fishing
can you hear us
charge
okay?
because the trees are blowing it. Yeah. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
It's a little laggy again. Just gonna have to have you slow down just a little, and then we'll be great.
Still
Thank you.
more?
This is going
Okay.
This is so great. Yes, thank you so much.
Okay. It's winter. People are still out at the surf. And the Bay of Biscay is a very shallow water, and it's hazardous to ships because of that. But it also makes it very beautiful if you don't mind walking along the seaport. This is how it looks at night. This is some of the recreational activities in Santander. And this is a building built by Renzo Piano. You may have heard of him because he did the addition to the Art Institute in Chicago, and he's famous for doing museums. And whenever you look up something about Santander, they show this picture of this art center that he created. It's quite unique because it's divided in the middle. Here's the stairway. It's also in a primary location. Now, this building is amazing. I wanted to find out what it was, and I've looked everywhere. I know where it is. It's somewhere near Santander. So if any of you know what it is, I would really like to find out. But I can't even imagine what it's for, but it's definitely new. This is a mural wall in Santander. It's a very prosperous city and the center of much financial and banking sites. There they are along the coastline. Went through a tunnel. This is a roadhouse along the way. They're probably watching soccer. And this is in the land of Don Quixote, and there are statues of him everywhere, and the old windmills. And the new wind-powered turbines. And we arrive at Toledo. Toledo is a big city surrounded by a river. Don Quixote guarding our hotel. We're not in a parador anymore. In front of the hotel, on the landing of the hotel, just in case, you never know, you might need him. You go down these stairs to the museum. It's the Museum of Santa Cruz, and it's a very beautiful place. Notice the door. Again, it's December. There's an entire museum dedicated to the work of El Greco. El Greco lived in Toledo for many years, and so they have a good collection of his work. This is a little pastry shop run by nuns, and this is a maquette showing how they make the pastries. This metalwork is a very common thing to buy in Toledo. Baskets. This is in the main square, and again, we could walk around the whole town. It's a big town, but you could still walk everywhere. That's the plaza, the main plaza. And this street just warms my heart because I was here in the summer, and in the summertime, where these lights are, were red cloth awnings because it's so hot in the summer that you need to be shaded. But it's the same design, but now we'll make it in lights. Some of the street folks. Vespa. Fashion statement. Buy a lottery ticket. Altamira has cave drawings. And until 1973, you were allowed to go into the caves. And finally they said, no, we can't be having that because people breathe on them and they'll be destroyed. So they built this beautiful museum with replicas of the cave drawings, and you can see them. You just can't, you don't have to worry about how you breathe. You can breathe on them too. So these are some of the drawings. It was 18,000 years ago that these were done. I love this picture because this poor guy is being attacked by some kind of animal. So it wasn't all peaceful in those caves. Okay. Here are some of the animals. A deer. This is a horse. Santillana del Mar is a misnomer. It has nothing to do with the saint, and it is not by the ocean. It's just a beautiful little town. This is where we ended up on Christmas Day. And this is our dear guide, Carolina, celebrating Christmas with us. The cathedral. In the summertime, it is totally full of people. This is Christmas Day exactly. And we're the only people there, I thought. There was a tourist shop open and the parador. Now, I actually stayed in this parador on a summer trip, and it was hard to find because there's actually two paradors in Santillana del Mar. So we found this one. So this is where we ended up on Christmas Day. You can tell it's a parador because even the faucet has this symbol. And these are folks eating their dinner outside. And here comes our dinner. Are you ready? A lobster dinner. Beautiful table setting, beautiful food, wine. Merry Christmas. And this is what I did to the poor lobster. Okay, Cordoba is the #1 tourist attraction in Spain. And it had been a mosque, and now it's a mosque with a cathedral in it. It's an interesting town as well, but people go there for the cathedral and the mosque. This is the cathedral. The streets are wonderful. La Mesquita is this is the mosque entrance. And this is the bell tower. And there was a minaret, but they couldn't figure out how to tear it down. So they just built the bell tower around it. Into this mosque, and it's a sea of arches, and they're just all beautiful, and the color is beautiful, the lighting is beautiful. Now you see what's happening over here. We're starting to see the cathedral part. So we were told that when Christianity came in and they considered tearing down the mosque, and it was just too outrageous to consider doing that. So they actually formed a very agreeable partnership to build this Christian church inside the mosque. And everybody thought it was a good idea. There was not a lot of conflict about it. Orange Grove. This is in the courtyard of the church, along the street. Fancy hotel named after the mosque. Fancy car. You know it's fancy. How the Telecom has a fancy car. Orange groves, orange trees in the street. I love this little restaurant because they like the decor of the mezquita so much. They made their restaurant to look like that. Now we're coming into Madrid, and I'm in the back seat of the taxi, and I see this fantastic building in front of us. And I thought it was Calatrava because he did everything. Well, it wasn't. It was a British architect, and in collaboration with a couple of Spanish people, he won the competition to do this. It's the largest airport in Spain. And one of the things they say is wonderful about it is it doesn't take long to get to your gate. So people really enjoy it. And of course, this beautiful yellow color. So we're going off now to Bilbao. Snow on the mountains. Bilbao is a really interesting place because it has old and new, and there's a lot of controversy about who discovered it, who rejuvenated it. Well, the first thing we did was take the funicular up to get an overview of the city. This is our ticket. So now we're looking at the newer part of the city, and this is Frank Gehry's Guggenheim Museum. And the controversy is some people say he reinvented or he reconstructed the prosperity of Bilbao. Well, it's always been an industrial city, and it's always been beautiful. So not everybody agrees with that idea. It has the river going through it, and the ladies looking after the ropes and the nets. Now, this is a Calatrava bridge. And again, nothing is done without controversy. This is a footbridge, and people complain because originally you can see here that it's, oh, wait a minute, let me go back. You can see that it's glass. Let's see if I can go back one. Never mind. Anyway, it's glass. And so people were sliding. So they said they have to cover it. They have to make it so they don't fall down. So they put some kind of carpeting over it, which I'm sure he was very happy about. But it's a beautiful bridge, and you can go from one. It's an easy way to get across the city. You can walk around Bilbao. This is the Opera House, and this building was offered to Frank Gehry for his museum, and he said no, thank you. He did not want to reconstruct an old building. But it is used, it has been rejuvenated into kind of a cultural center. This is a view from above. And this is a subway entrance. And you really can get around Bilbao without using public transportation, unless you want to go to the outskirts. But this just opened in 1997. And again, this was a British architect. So Calatrava didn't do everything in town. This is the entrance. And they also have ground transportation. Frank Gehry's museum. Now he's Canadian, but he practices mostly in the US. So many different countries are represented by the architecture and buildings in Spain. People sitting outside on the plaza of the restaurant, of the hotel, or the museum restaurant. This is a famous sculpture by Louise Bourgeois, and she thinks of the spider as representing cleverness, industriousness, and protectiveness. It's a reference to her mother, and you'll see many of these spiders in different places around the world. Then there was Jeff Koons. He came in with this little puppy made out of flowers. So this is the opening. There's the puppy planted with flowers, and there's Jeff Koons, very proud of his puppy, and it was to be a temporary exhibit. And people liked it. This is how it looks today in the winter. This is how it looks in the summer. It's very expensive to maintain because you have to change the flowers twice a year and you have to water it all the time. But they fell so much in love with it that they didn't want to take it away. So it's become a permanent exhibit at the Guggenheim. These are outdoor sculptures, not permanent. They'll be changing all the time. What is permanent is this sculpture by Richard Serra, American. This is a diagram of what he did in this kind of, I guess it's Corten copper or rusted copper. This is a model of it. And here we saw a video of how he constructed it. They're measuring across here to the centimeter to make sure it is correct. And if you go into one of these mazes and then you come out, I guarantee you, you won't know where you are. You won't know which direction you are. You'll feel totally disoriented. This is a little tour through the museum. Now, I said I wouldn't talk about invasions and war and who conquered whom, but however, Picasso did a mural of Guernica, which was the invasion of the city of Guernica during the Spanish Civil War. And everywhere you go, you'll see other reproductions of Guernica. This is one we saw in a restaurant. This is the hotel in which we stayed. We're in the new part of the city. And if you notice over here, you may see a familiar face. They're very fond of American actors and musicians. This is Rita Hayworth and Paul Newman in the dining room of this modern hotel. That's the breakfast set. This is the lobby. You have to really look at it to see that you're in the lobby. But we just walked out and we were right there by everything. Now we're in the old city. Lots of beautiful lights in the old city. We have ice skating. And you can bring some toys to ice skate with you. This is the Calatava Bridge lit up at night. Okay, every city in the Basque Country has two names. San Sebastian is also called Donostia. So it's really fun when you're trying to drive and you have to consider which name it might say on the sign compared to what it might say on the map. So we're in San Sebastian. It is famous for its food. When Queen Elizabeth visited Spain, they gave her chefs from San Sebastian because these are the best chefs in the whole country. And everything there is delicious. We didn't have tapas, but you can go and eat just a whole meal of pointing out little tapas, and then they charge you by how many empty plates you have at the end. This is the main square. This building was amazing because it was built right on the waterfront in prime location. And it won the prize for the Mies van der Rohe Award for Architecture, European architecture. It's very different from what you see across the street, but it must have been very important to put it in this location. There's a churros stand. These are traditional costumes. People actually do dress like this with a beret. But they also dress like this. And this. Another Guernica. See how horrible it was? Okay, so the tradition of the great food. This is at the Madrid airport. This is my lunch in Merida. It was delicious. Octopus. We went to a chocolateria and had churros. Churros and chocolate is a very famous delicacy in Spain. And here he is making the churros. It's a deep fried giant donut, I guess you'd call it. You cut it up with scissors, just ordinary scissors, and serve it like that. And you dip it in the chocolate. There is no end to seafood, of course, because you're right on the shore. The olives. We didn't have tapas, but we went to this restaurant for lunch. It's called the Morgan Company, and it had a very American flavor, except for the food, but the decorations were definitely American. Here's Edward Hopper, Miles Davis, and this was our table setting. It looks like it came right out of the 40s. We had wine. And these are all the courses we had for lunch. All this. We had appetizers and some kind of delicacy here, and a salad and a piece of fish and some meat and dessert. Just amazing. These are the bathrooms. This is the ladies' room, and this is the men's room. This was the sink in the ladies' room. And as you go out on the shore, it's sort of like, I don't know, it's an amusement place, but it's a beautiful seaside as well. It's a little bit of everything. Beautiful restaurants there. This guy had a puppet show of the Beatles, and he had music playing. So the Beatles and the puppets all were coordinated. This is a famous sculpture. It's called the wind comb. And if you walk out here, you understand why it's the wind comb and why the sea is not so good for boats, because it's a very strong wind and a very strong surf. And so he positioned these where, I love this, positioned in the place where the city ends and the sea begins. Now we're at the shore, and you can see all these little amusements in the background and the traditional buildings. And I was there on an Easter weekend. It was very similar to this. It still wasn't high season, but there are people walking along the walk, people on the beach. And actually people swimming. I think he has a swimsuit on.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Dorothy. This was a real treat. We have some questions in the Q&A box, and if you're ready, we can go through those. Dorothy, can you hear us all right?
I can hear you, yeah.
All right, sounds great. We have some questions, so we're going to go ahead and go through those. The first is, what Christmas customs were the same as the US, and were there any that were different?
Well, everybody has a Christmas tree, but I think the thing that I noticed was there were no inflatable Santa Clauses or creatures in people's yards. Everything was kind of natural. The lighting is amazing because it's different in every city. You know, you just don't see the same thing over and over again.
That is great. Awesome. The next question we had was from Rich Stein. How did you get around? Driving, tour bus, by rail?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, when there were two of us and Carolina and her mother, we had a little van. When we were with the larger group, we were in a larger van. And when we got to the cities, we just basically walked around. Yeah, did we take any public transportation? I don't think so. Yeah, we walked around in Toledo and Bilbao, San Sebastian. Yeah. You can take, oh, on one of the trips we drove. I was on a different trip and we drove. And that's when it's very confusing because of the two names of people in the Basque country. And they speak their own language. I mean, they're not Spanish, they're Basques. But driving is interesting, as it always is.
Judy Bach asked, you showed a couple of carousels. Are those only around during the Christmas time or all year round?
The one in San Sebastian's there year round. I don't know about the other ones. I've only been there. I think a carousel is pretty permanent, but the one in San Sebastian's definitely there all the time.
Great.
And you could go to San Sebastian any time of the year. It would be wonderful.
Ivan Sanchez mentioned that the curved metal building in Santander is actually a sports center or arena.
Oh, good. And is it Santander?
Yes.
Let me see what he says. Okay. Well, that would make sense. It looks like a sports center.
All right, we have just about time for one more question. And I've been asked, what is the name of the museum with the cave drawing?
It's called, oh, let me think. I had it on the slide and I can't remember. I'm blanking, but who's asking that? Carmen?
No, that question was asked by, bear with me just a moment. That was asked by Ivan Sanchez.
Well, if you look up Santillana del Mar, that's the closest city, and it's called, I'm sorry, I can't remember. My mind is just too flooded.
All right, well, thank you so much, Dorothy. This was a fantastic presentation on Christmas in Spain, a great way to end 2023. We do just have a couple of announcements for GSC itself. We are having our next travelogue on the wine regions of France on January 16th at 1 p.m., our usual time. You can go ahead and take a picture of that QR code and it will take you to the registration page. And that one will be presented by Jean Flynn. Our next GIS teacher meetup will be hosted by Judy Bach on January 22nd at 7 p.m. And for this specific webinar, we'll be focusing on Esri's story map. And finally, in order to get more information from us, your best source for details is our GSC newsletter. You can scan this QR code to ensure that you are receiving most up-to-date information from us in your emails. All right. Thank you all so much for joining, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year, and happy holidays.